a little bit. Let's talk about your favorite group, Brockhampton. Yeah.
Sure.
He said, sure. So, starting in early on, that was one of like the first groups that you really like introduced the world to, but then also were kind of intertwined to within your show. They were like a reoccurring guest, a reoccurring group, but then also they were putting out music so consistently. Can you speak on like that time of when they were around and how important that was for the show?
My show or their or them or like what do you
I
mean?
guess both. That you guys really did work hand in hand
Well, I
with
had
that.
like Tony Fantano. I mean,
It's funny that that's like the perception because the thing is like and I understand why it would be because obviously like there's definitely like um a simultaneous sort of like there's like a symbiosis there to some extent. Um in the same way that some people perceive there to be on some level with like other things that I promote really heavily and simultaneously sort of seem to kind of like take off or get really popular at the same time that I'm like endorsing them or sort of like just saying, hey, this is cool, this is worth your time, you need to check this out. And there are artists and examples of records that came out long before that people have kind of viewed in a similar way. Like for a little bit, that was like Death Grips, like this as I'm sure like a lot of people know and are aware of who are watching this interview. I don't know how much you guys are kind of aware of their work, but there
Mhm.
have been a lot of artists over the years that I've reviewed that like I've either blown up or I'm perceived to have something to do with their blow up, or maybe they've gotten like signed immediately after I reviewed them positively. Like it happens, but the thing is like there wasn't really anything uh in terms of what I was doing and what they were doing that was like, you know, planned or engineered in any way. You know what I mean? Like outside of, the couple of interviews that I've done with either Brockhampton and Kevin Abstract, there hasn't really been sort of like a whole lot of contact, between us. They
organic
would just,
though.
and I feel like that was definitely sort of like, um, as much as I feel like we just like with a lot of artists, we sort of like mutually appreciate what one another does. Like I appreciate what they do and they appreciate what I do. I feel like we mutually sort of like understand that like we wouldn't be able to appreciate what one another does in the way that we do if we were like friends. You know what I mean? Like the thing is, if I know you on a level that's so intimate, I kind of like understand everything going on with you personally and your music. I'm not going to get the same thing out of it that I would as sort of like an outsider who all of this stuff is like kind of new to me. And the thing is like, if you become so close to me that we're like buddy buddy and we sort of like have this intimate kind of like working relationship, you can't then expect me to sort of like give an honest assessment of your work. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like every review that I've ever done of anything that they've done has come from like a real place, be that like the original Saturation records or how things like kind of fell off with Iridescence and then kind of bounced back in sort of that emotional way with, Ginger immediately after. And then obviously like, kind of tumbling to the very unfortunate end that I think things met with like the last couple of records that it sort of seems like they pushed those out to sort of like get their whole deal done and everything. Um, so, I think, uh, while it was cool to be able to kind of like have that, uh, sort of moment where things were like working in tandem and they were putting out some really great stuff that I think was groundbreaking and super, and is proving to be like influential. It was like a really cool moment in time. Simultaneously, I feel like things hit a bit of a wall with them, unfortunately. And I feel like that's kind of the nature of like just running a really big group, like very very few groups of that size in any genre tend to last for very long because you're just working with so many like different moving parts that it's like difficult to kind of keep it all going in the same way. Um, I mean, I'm glad it happened and it's really exciting and it's awesome to, have met them and have, celebrated their music when it was like, really awesome and sort of at its peak. And I definitely look back on all that stuff with like a lot of um it most definitely still holds up in my opinion. But it sort of came and went, and I guess at this point we're all kind of sitting here trying to see where it goes. Kevin's doing his thing, Joba's doing his thing, and that record wasn't quite where I was hoping it was going to be when it dropped. Matt Champion has been doing some really interesting genre fusion stuff with his latest work, and Merlin drops a single here and there. I'm sort of wondering where that's going to go. Dom has had some stuff out that I was kind of mixed on. It's just, I guess, we're just going to see where it goes from here.
Totally agreed. And piggybacking off it a little bit, and I know it's not your favorite, but we did have a conversation with Amir about a few months ago, and even hearing his growth in the past few years and his music was really, really fun to hear as well. So the whole group, we look back on the Brockhampton boys at a super fun time, and that whole era of you covering their music and them being involved was something we look on back on super fondly as well.